quick question. What would you do if tomorrow afternoon the sky grew a storm cloud? Except it wasn't a storm cloud. It was a mountain turning itself inside out. Because in the year 79 CE, on the glittering Bay of Naples, one of the most beautiful holiday destinations on Earth, people went about a totally normal day. They bought bread, they flirted, they argued about politics and wine and whose sandals were fake. And then, with the worst timing, the ground basically went, by the way, remember that mountain you've been ignoring? And here's the wild part. We don't just have myths and vibes for this story. We have an eyewitness account written by someone who was clearly still shaking when they picked up the pen. We have a Roman admiral who sails straight into danger like it's a rescue mission and discovers that nature does not care about your resume. And we have cities frozen in time so perfectly that you can still read the graffiti. Today, we're going to walk through the eruption of Mount Vesuvius, minute by minute like it's unfolding around us. And by the end, you'll never look at a nice hillside view the same way again. Welcome to the Curiosity Diary. Grab a pint, this one gets dark. So, picture the Bay of Naples in Roman times. It's basically the Mediterranean's luxury postcode. Warm climate, gorgeous coastline, rich soil, absurdly rich soil. Because volcanoes, as it turns out, are like nature's cursed fertilizer. You've got towns and villas sprinkled around the bay like someone's made a travel brochure. Pompeii, busy, commercial, a bit loud, a bit messy, full of shops and bars and gossip. Herculaneum, smaller, wealthier, more we summer here vibe. Stabiae and Oplontis, fancy villas, sea views, the kind of place where the bathroom is bigger than your flat. And towering behind it all is Mount Vesuvius, which at the time didn't look intimidating at all. Green slopes, vineyards, farms, people hike it, they build next to it, they raise kids next to it. Which is the ancient equivalent of moving your family into a house because the previous owner said, oh yeah, the basement only floods sometimes. Now, there have been warnings before. In 62 CE, 17 years before the eruption, a huge earthquake slammed the area. Buildings cracked, statues toppled, temples were damaged. Pompeii was still repairing years later. But humans are astonishing at going, wow, that was weird. Anyway, back to snacks. After that quake, there were tremors now and then, little shivers underfoot, but the Romans didn't have modern volcanology. They had gods, superstitions, and confidence. Vesuvius wasn't seen as a ticking time bomb, it was just seen as scenery. And in late summer, or possibly autumn, we'll come back to that bit later, 79 CE arrives like any other, until one afternoon, it doesn't. Our main eyewitness is a guy named Pliny the Younger. When this happens, he's around 17 or 18, living across the bay at Misenum, a Roman naval base, and he's living with his uncle Pliny the Elder. Now, Pliny the Elder is a character. He's a high-ranking naval commander, a scholar, an author of the massive encyclopedia called Natural History, the sort of person who would absolutely ruin a pub quiz. He's also famously hardworking. The man basically treated sleep like an optional hobby. And because life loves irony, he's about to get front row seats to the greatest natural disaster of the Roman world. Years later, Pliny the Younger writes 2 letters to the historian Tacitus, describing what happened. Those letters become the classic eyewitness account. And yes, this eruption is why we use the term Plinian for those towering volcanic clouds. A teenager wrote a letter, science named a category after it, Try getting that kind of impact from your GCSE coursework. It starts in the early afternoon. Across the bay, people notice the cloud above Vesuvius, but not your fluffy little, oh look, a rabbit-shaped one cloud. This thing rises fast like a pillar and then spreads at the top. Pliny describes it as shaped like a pine tree, a tall trunk with a branching canopy. And imagine seeing that with no concept of what it means. No news alert, no disaster warning, no helpful man on telly pointing at a map. Just the sky changing shape. Pliny the Elder is at home when he hears about it. Being Pliny the Elder, his first instinct is not panic. His first instinct is, ooh, interesting. He orders a closer look, gets a ship ready, and then, this is the turning point. He receives a message from a woman named Rectina, trapped near the foot of the mountain. She begs for help. Escape by land is impossible. Now the day changes, because Pliny the Elder is suddenly not just curious, he's responsible. He decides to sail across the bay towards the eruption. Yes, he takes a ship towards the exploding mountain, which is brave and also slightly unhinged. But here's why it matters. His decision becomes one of the most famous rescue attempts in ancient history. And for Pliny the Younger watching from Misenum, it becomes the moment he realizes this is not just a weird cloud, this is the world turning. In Pompeii, the day begins like any other. People go to market, they work in shops, they eat, they argue, they flirt. Someone probably complains about the price of olives like it's the end of civilization. And then the first real sign hits. Ash. At first, it's like gritty dust. Annoying, irritating. People look up, squint, pull their tunics over their mouths. Then it escalates. Pumice, light volcanic rock begins to fall. Not pebbles, not, oh that's odd, chunks of volcanic rock. And here's the sinister trick. Pumice is light, so it doesn't immediately smash you. It just keeps falling and falling and falling. Roofs begin to take weight. Now imagine the soundscape, a constant hiss of ash, the rattle of stones on tiles, shouting, animals losing their minds, the ground occasionally jolting under your feet like a giant is bumping the table. Pompeii's streets start filling up. Visibility drops, breathing gets harder. Some people decide to leave immediately. Very smart. Some decide to wait it out. Very human. And some probably go, it'll blow over. Which technically it will, just not in a comforting way. Out on the water, Pliny the Elder is crossing the bay. Ash is drifting over the sea, the air smells like sulfur. As his ship approaches the coast, falling debris becomes so thick that the sailors worry they won't be able to land. The sea itself is behaving strangely, currents shifting, waves pulling in odd directions like the bay is breathing wrong. They aim for a town called Stabiae, where the winds allow them to dock, and this is where Pliny the Elder becomes weirdly admirable, because he tries to calm everyone down. He bathes, he eats, he lies down like, right, everyone relax, we're not doing hysteria today. But outside, the sky is getting darker, and the mountain is not done. Back at Misenum, Pliny the Younger is watching the cloud expand. The tremors intensify, buildings creak. People gather in the streets because being indoors starts to feel unsafe. And then the darkness arrives. Not sunset, not a bit of overcast, full darkness in the middle of the disaster, because the ash cloud swallows the light. Pliny describes it as the kind of dark you get in a closed room with no lamp. Now imagine being a Roman in that moment. You don't have streetlights, you don't have torches for everyone. You don't have a concept of pyroclastic surge. You have screaming, prayers, the sound of collapsing roofs, and the horrifying realization that the sun has basically resigned. People start doing very human things. Some cling to family members, some shout for missing relatives, some pray, some try to party the fear away, yes, really, and some freeze. Because your brain can only process so much end of the world before it just gives up and goes blank. And somewhere across the bay, Pompeii is being buried under meters of pumice, layer by layer, like the city is sinking into a grey ocean. Now here's a grim twist. Pompeii gets the fame. Herculaneum gets the nightmare. Because Pompeii is being buried mainly by falling pumice and ash at first. Horrific, yes, but with moments where escape is still possible. Herculaneum, closer to the volcano, faces something different. In the night and early morning, the eruption shifts. The towering cloud collapses in parts, and this produces pyroclastic surges, fast-moving avalanches of superheated gas, ash, and debris. Not lava flowing slowly like in films. This is more like a hurricane made of oven heat and knives. These surges can move incredibly fast, too fast to outrun. And the temperatures can be lethal within seconds. At Herculaneum, many people flee to the shoreline, sheltering in boathouses, hoping to escape by sea. And later, archaeologists find them there, together, waiting. It's one of the most haunting snapshots of the disaster. People doing the logical thing, heading for boats, only for the sea to become useless, and the air itself to turn deadly. As Stabiae, Pliny the Elder is trapped. Ash is falling harder, the air is thick, the tremors continue. At one point, flames are visible in the distance. Some may be fires from falling debris, some may be the terrifying glow of the eruption. They try to leave, but the conditions are chaos. Choking air, debris, darkness. Pliny is older, heavier, and possibly suffers from respiratory issues. And then, near the shoreline, he collapses. Pliny the Younger later says his uncle was found dead, his body strangely intact, as if asleep. There's debate about what exactly killed him. Suffocation, a heart problem, the toxic air, or a combination. But the narrative is painfully clear. A man who loved understanding nature went to meet it up close, and nature did not negotiate. He didn't die as a warrior. He died as a human being in the wrong place during the wrong breath. Now, Pompeii, by morning, many buildings are already strained. Pumice piles in the streets, roofs have started collapsing under the weight. If you stayed indoors, you might be crushed. If you went outside, you might be hit by falling stone. If you tried to breathe, your lungs are basically being asked to take in sandpaper. People cover their faces with cloth. Some hold pillows over their heads, improvised helmets, because when you don't have a plan, you invent one. And then the pyroclastic surges arrive here too. This is the part that finishes the city. A surge doesn't politely arrive, it hits like a wall. The air temperature spikes, the darkness becomes total. You can't see, you can't breathe, you can't orientate yourself. And for many, it's over in moments. This is why the remains found in Pompeii are so haunting. People caught mid-run, mid-crowd, curled up, shielding children, clutching valuables, tiny human decisions fossilized into history. After the eruption, the landscape has changed. Pompeii is not a ruin you can visit, it's a missing city, buried under meters of volcanic material. Fields return, people live nearby, the world moves on. And then centuries later, it re-emerges almost by accident. In the 1700s, excavation begins in the area, and people realize they found something extraordinary. Not just collapsed walls, a time capsule. You can walk into a house and see frescoes on the walls, You can see the layout of the shops. You can see taverns with counters. You can see graffiti. Some of it romantic, some of it political, some of it honestly what you would expect humans to write on walls when they think no one's watching. And then there's the most famous but chilling technique. In the 1800s, archaeologists realized that many bodies left voids in the hardened ash, spaces where the body decomposed but the shape remained. So they poured plaster into the cavities. When the plaster sets, they remove the ash and reveal the forms, faces, hands, folds of clothing. It's like the disaster reached through time and left fingerprints. And in Herculaneum, there's another eerie treasure, the Villa of the Papyri, where scrolls were carbonized, basically baked into charcoal, but survived. Today, scientists are using advanced scanning to read some of them without unrolling them. So this eruption didn't just kill cities, it preserved them like history hit save at the worst possible moment. But first, here's a quick nerdy twist because I can't resist. Traditionally, the eruption is dated to August 24th, 79 CE. That's the old textbook date. But some evidence suggests it might have happened later in the year, possibly in October. Things like autumn foods found, warmer clothing, and some archaeological clues. So yes, even here, history keeps a little mystery tucked in its pocket. Either way, the point stands. People went to bed thinking tomorrow would be normal, and tomorrow was Vesuvius. Here's the uncomfortable modern footnote. Vesuvius is still active. It hasn't erupted like 79 CE in a long time, but it's not extinct. And today, the area around Naples is densely populated, which means the story of Pompeii isn't just ancient drama. It's a reminder that humans are brilliant at building civilization right next to danger, and then acting surprised when danger behaves like danger. And maybe that's why the eruption of Vesuvius never stops gripping us, because it's not just about Rome. It's about normal life, right up until it isn't. It's about a teenager watching the sky turn into night and somehow finding the words to describe it so clearly that we can still feel it. And it's about the arrogance we all share, the quiet belief that disasters happen to other people in other places at other times until they don't. And that is the story of the day Vesuvius reminded the Roman world and all of us that nature doesn't need permission. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe to The Curiosity Diary for more human, strange, unbelievable chapters from history. And I'll see you in the next one.